Good afternoon, everyone. So thank you for joining to our second session on the Welcome to Black History panel series. I want to bring one of our co-chairs at Meridian, Abish, to actually start the session so that we can move on.
Thank you, Shriyan. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Meridian Small Business Panel Discussion. My name is Abhish Goswami, and I am co-chair for Meridian BIPOC ERG. For those who are wondering what BIPOC ERG is, it's an employee resource group for Black, Indigenous, and people of color. I'm working with Meridian for over a year now, and I'll be doing the land acknowledgement today. Since I'm based at Toronto, we'll be doing land acknowledgement for Toronto. We acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit and Métis. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Acknowledging reminds us of our commitment and responsibility to improve relationships between nations, as well as our own understanding of the local Indigenous people and their cultures. We are grateful to have the opportunity to live, work, and play here. We give thanks to the ancestors who have served as stewards of this land. Over to you, Christine.
Thank you, Abish. Thank you, Abish. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our panel series for Black History Month. I will just go over the housekeeping for today. This call is being recorded. All participants have been muted, or if you'd like to turn your mute on, just click your microphone option on your screen so that a red line runs through it. For questions from our participants on the chat, please introduce yourself with your first and last name, and we will do our best to answer the questions at the end of the presentation. If you are joining from your cell phone, please email your questions to myself. My email is mentioned here. And for technical assistance, please reach out to our tech online, that's George, and George's email is mentioned here also. Thank you again for joining today.
Thanks, Charlene. So before we start the program, I want to actually give some history behind the Black History Month, why we are doing it, and what's the significance. So the commemoration of Black History Month in North America dates back to 1926. During the early 1970s, the week became known as the Black History Week. It was expanded into Black History Month in 1976. In December 1995, the House of Commons officially recognized February as the Black History Month in Canada, following a motion introduced by the first African Canadian woman elected to Parliament, the Honorable Jane Augustine. During Black History Month, Canadians celebrate the many achievements and contributions of Black Canadians and their communities who, throughout history, have done so much to make Canada a culturally diverse, compassionate, and a prosperous country. The role of Black Canadians and their communities in Canada has largely been ignored as a part of Canada's history. Black History Month is time to learn more about these Canadian stories and the many other important contributions that Black Canadians and their communities have made to the history and continued growth of this country. Before we move on to our agenda, I just want to bring two things in relates to 23rd of February. Today is the Anti-Bullying Day, so hope everybody can see my pink shirt and everyone else can actually definitely join. And talking about Black History Month, as well as the other significance today is the Toronto Jamaican Beef Patty Day. So in, I know it's very in line with the Black history and the communities and food. So 1985, one of food health inspectors actually made a decision to reach out to these vendors and say, sorry, you can't use the word patty in this food item. And later on, it was a peaceful resolution. And due to that, 23rd February was recognized as the Toronto Beef Patty Day. So what a way to start our program. I know it's lunchtime, guys. Moving on to our agenda, we have two guest speakers with us today. One is Charlene Rocha, one of our recipients of our scholarship. And then we have one of our small business ambassadors, I would say, one of our members, Mike John, who's joining with us. So let's move on to our agenda-based slides. Go. George, can we have the slides thank you. Okay, Sean Jackson Scholarship, we have last year's recipient, Charlene. Charlene, over to you. I want you to give us some introduction about you, and then we can actually start the conversation.
Hi, yeah, of course. Thank you for the introduction. As you mentioned, my name is Charlene Rocha. I'm an environmental activist, and I'm an advocate for women and people of color in STEM. And I'm currently studying software engineering at the University of Waterloo. Last year, I was able to receive the Meridian Scholarship, and it has helped me so much. It has really just made my educational experience so much more worthwhile because, again, I don't have it in the back of my mind that I have to worry about finances and paying for school. So yeah, I'm really excited to talk a little bit more about the scholarship and my projects outside of that as well.
Thank you for your introduction, Charlie. So I understand, scholarships are definitely going to bring you new opportunity, meet new people. So give us some idea, how's your succession going with receiving the scholarship?
Yeah, of course, of course. One thing that I really, really appreciated about it is that, when I was looking into universities and trying to make a decision of where I wanted to go, I didn't want, being able to afford something to play a part in that. I wanted to be able to go to a university or a school where I knew that I was studying something that I loved, and I knew that I was going to be in a community where I could learn the most and make the most out of my education. So in doing that, I knew that, scholarships had to play a big part of it so I would be able to afford school. And Meridian, again, has been a huge help of that because it's taken a huge relief off of my shoulders. I know that many students, including me, if I didn't get this scholarship, tend to, take a year off to be able to afford school so they can work and pay for their bills. Some students have to work during the school year, which then takes a toll on their studies. And there's a lot of different factors that play into that. And I think that, we should be able to, as students, go into a program or go into a school knowing that we're able to try our best and come out of it being able to perform our best as well. And personally, for me, one thing that I've absolutely enjoyed is that, having this scholarship and not having to worry about money and finances and paying for it has made time for, me being able to participate in clubs. Student leadership was something that I was really, really huge on in high school. And being able to do that in university as well has meant a lot to me. I'm currently part of a team called the University of Waterloo's Blueprint team. And basically what we do is we create software for nonprofits. And to give you an example of, one of the projects that I'm working on right now is we're collaborating with a nonprofit where they're receiving tons and tons of donations. And we're creating a software that essentially organizes it all and has all of, like, the food expiry dates and things like that. So it's, again, really interesting that I'm able to spend more time on things that I love doing and developing my own skills rather than, again, being worried about education.
Thank you. Thank you. So give me some idea what made you to apply for this scholarship and anything that you can actually tell your other students, what benefits actually it has given to you and what motivated you to actually apply for this scholarship.
Yeah, of course, of course. I know that scholarships and applying for scholarships can be a little bit daunting at first. And especially when I'm, talking to high school students and, telling people about how they can approach applying for scholarships. A big fear they have is, what if I'm wasting my time, or what if I'm unable to get one, or how do I find a good scholarship? And, there's tons of opportunities out there, and I hope that there continues to be tons of more opportunities out there, because really, when you put in the time and you try to look for these opportunities, it's incredibly worthwhile. For me personally, I did spend some time in high school applying, and again, it helped me a ton, a few of my friends as well. And again, it really helps you make time for things that you have interests in, and just the things that you love doing. Like personally, I have so many things that I love doing outside of school, so many hobbies that I wanted to pursue, and just being able to, receive a scholarship and then spend time on school and also those hobbies really opens up so many more doors for you, because now when I'm looking for, internships or jobs outside of school, it really diversifies my portfolio, because I'm able to, not have to worry about these things outside of it. But yeah, I definitely recommend it for students, and I recommend it for if you're thinking of sponsoring a student for university. It really opens up so many more doors for them, and it really makes them more available to the different opportunities that they can have.
Nice. Yeah, definitely. So I know scholarship is part of Meridian's way of giving back to community. So what are your plans? Do you have any projects in mind, things like that, like how you want to be contributed back to the community?
Yeah, of course. I can talk all day about that. I love being involved in social justice issues. And one reason why I chose to be part of a software engineering program, and why that was something that I wanted to pursue, is because, throughout volunteering with these organizations, I realized that I could take coding and my love for robotics and combine it with that passion that I had for social justice issues. And I loved that combination was something that not a lot of other people had. And that's another reason why diversity is so important and key in so many of our different fields, because you want that representation so people can bring things to the board. And an example of that is I was working with a team called Enable Toronto. And basically what we did is we 3D printed prosthetic hands for those in need. And obviously in Canada, we have free healthcare, but when you look into different countries, it can be incredibly expensive, to purchase a prosthetic or even to have access to healthcare to get them. But our team, all we needed was, pictures, a few measurements, and we were able to create 3D print hands and send them off. So again, things like that where, I'm super passionate about being able to help others and give back to my community, and to be able to combine that with something that I love, like 3D printing and robotics and stuff like that, really makes it so much more worthwhile, because then I'm developing my own technical skills and also being able to apply it in my own life. And I can give you another example. I'm also really, really passionate about environmental activism and, how the environment can impact our every move. And me and my friends, we created this project where basically we had a little platform and you can put your trash on it, and it helps you accurately sort through your trash and recycle what can be recycled or not. Because we were noticing that a lot of people were recycling things that aren't meant to be recycled. And then what happens is if you incorrectly sort something, the entire garbage bin needs to be thrown out and you can't recycle any of it. And we were noticing that with things like yogurt cups and, like Tim Hortons coffee cups that have that lining, they're not able to be recycled. And a lot of people don't know that. But yeah, that was a really fun project that we worked on. And I love being able to just come up with ideas and create them. And again, scholarships really, really create opportunities so you can have time for things like that and follow your passions and follow what you're interested in doing.
Interesting. Interested to see how things fall out with your passion in robotics and environment and giving back to the community, and then talking about the recycling. That's an everyday conversation at my house. You can't put that in. You can't put that in. Like if it is not clean, you can't put it in recycling. That's going to ruin the mesh.
I know, exactly. And I remember in school we used to have those little recycling charts. But even those, if you don't have an item on that recycling chart, you don't know what to do with it.
I totally hear you. Hopefully you will come up with something easy to manage by households. They can definitely recycle everything much as possible, I guess, hopefully one day.
Thank you.
Christine, do we have any questions or do we have any time? How are we on time?
Yes, we're doing good. Actually, yeah, we do have 3 questions, comments actually. So Yuri, Yuri wanted to give a shout out to Charlene. Hi, Charlene. Do you feel that there are ample and easily accessible scholarship or bursary programs for Black, Indigenous people of color?
That is a absolutely amazing question, because, I spoke a little bit about how when I was in high school, I would look for scholarships all the time. And even I would find it incredibly difficult to find ones that are specifically tailored to, people of color or Black and Indigenous people of color. And, even if there were in my community scholarships available, there's an incredible demand for it. And, we would have so many students apply for these. And again, at the end of the day, only, 1 or 2 can get it. But I really think that if we're able to make more accessible and more available to our students, there is a demand for it and students will apply. But again, one of the difficult things is that, applying for scholarships does take time out of the day, some time that people don't have, if you have multiple jobs or you're trying to help out in your family, and it plays a huge part in that. So I definitely think if we're making more accessible, students will jump at that opportunity and they will apply.
Amazing. Thanks for that, for sure. And another question for you. Janet says, it's so nice to see young people progress in the field of their dreams. She's saying thanks to Meridian for making this dream come true. And personally, she feels that there is a huge ground to cover to make resources accessible mainly for marginalized communities. And I believe you just alluded to that, Charlene, just creating that platform that is easy. As you said, it is a time-consuming process. Yes. I know myself, I had to do it at one stage and it does take some time away. So if we could make it just a little bit more seamless. Lori on our chat said, way to go to find your niche and find a unique way to solve problems with your skill set. So that's an applaud for you, Charlene.
Thank you.
And then Vicky wanted to know, who has inspired you in your educational journey? Do you have any heroes, any heroines?
Yeah, of course. I can name quite a few, but one that I always really like to look at is, her name is Margaret Hamilton, and she's actually the person who coined the term software engineering. And she was a NASA computer scientist, and she was working on a team of all guys, and she was able to bring so much to the table and really help them develop their projects. So she's also always an inspiration to me because, even when I was in my high school classes, I was, the only girl in my, computer science, robotics classes. And even in my advanced math classes, I was the only girl. So thinking back to that, it can feel a little bit discouraging if, you're the only person of color in a room or if you're the only woman in the room. But again, it was a reminder that I have unique opportunities and unique perspectives to bring to the table. And that's why diversity is so important in all of our fields, because again, you're bringing that new insight to the table and you're allowing people to see, here's what I can do. How can we collaborate and how can we come up with something that's even better than if you were to do it yourself?
Amazing. Great. Love it. Over to you, Shriyan.
Thanks, Christine. Thanks, Charlene, for your time. And hopefully we can work together in the future as well in these community projects where Meridian can be a part of it. So I'm going to our second guest speaker, Mike John. I don't want to take your spotlight. I'm going to let you introduce yourself and we can take it from there. Over to you, Mike.
Sure. Thank you very much, Shriyan. And thank you very much for having me here today. I hope I can do you justice. So I am a Meridian member, and I own several businesses. I own, I think, maybe 5.5 businesses or so. My main business is a company called Quantum Media House, which is a full-service marketing company. And that marketing company is basically around for us to market the other businesses and brands that we own. So we do have outside clients, but those outside clients are really just to make sure that we can basically, pay for staff and pay for our situation, basically. And so we try not to take too many clients and customers, and we take clients and customers that we want to work with, projects that we like, projects that we think are doing positive things in the marketplace. And then with the spare time, we use those to market our other businesses. So one of our other businesses is called the Guelph Games, soon to be called the Good Games, which are a 30 and over master sports tournament and community festival. So that is about celebrating health, wellness, and sport for life. It is something that we were going to launch in 2020, and COVID had other plans for us. But even despite that, we were able to grow that business during COVID through a lot of sweat and tears at times. And we're able to make that business profitable. And we will be launching this year, July 1st to 3rd, here in Guelph, and having some partnerships all across the country. And so that's where the name is changing from the Guelph Games to the Good Games, where we'll have these tournaments and festivals all across the country in 2023 and beyond. The next business is a business called Neighbor Magazine, which is a franchise. It was previously called Snapped newspaper. I don't know if some of you are familiar with Snapped newspaper. We purchased the Neighbor Magazine franchise, almost a vertical integration. So it helped us with the Guelph Games. We have local, regional, as well as national partners, and this kind of helped us on the local level. So it helped us to provide more value for our local customers, our local clients, our local sponsors, and also provided another form of income for us. So even though it doesn't produce a ton of income at maybe $3,000 to $10,000 a month, it almost works as a bit of a line of credit for us, and just provides more income. The next business is Laza Beverages, which is a new business. So we just purchased a 40% stake in Laza Beverages, and they were a partner of the Guelph Games, and we had a really good relationship and saw a fit. We worked well together, and so we purchased a 40% equity stake in the company. And so that is just, again, more vertical integration, us deciding to work for ourselves instead of bringing on other partners. We were in a kind of unique position, and so that is a brand spanking new, just started. And then there are two other businesses that started because of the pandemic. So I had a little bit more time on our hands, and I started a company called Big Sting Sustainable, which works with corporations. And we install beehives on properties for businesses who have sustainable initiatives. So we install beehives, manage them, and manage the extraction of the honey. And we also have added this year, last year was a pilot project, which worked out really well. And this year we added composting worms to that. So it's a sustainable niche business, which was, again, this is a hobby. It's something that I would have done on my own anyways. I have beehives, I have chickens, those kinds of things. And decided, you know what, I'm going to turn this into a business. Had a little bit of time. And the last business is diversity and inclusion, basically communications consulting. So again, after the George Floyd incident, I started working with municipalities and corporations on diversity training internally and externally from a communications perspective. So how do we talk about this internally? How do we talk about this externally? How do we let people know that we have these initiatives? So those have all worked out pretty well. I'm an entrepreneur through and through.
Hey, thanks for that introduction, Mike. And it's quite impressive, and it shows your compassion, like knowing all the businesses you run. Just hearing about it, like, oh, like, thank you for that. So I'm pretty sure challenge being a business, starting from scratch and acquiring, you had many challenges, and some of them are systematic, some of them are regular being business and running a business challenges. So give us some idea, like how is that being your ride?
It's been it's interesting. I mean, I always say, being an entrepreneur is not for the faint of heart. It's very difficult, can be very lonely. There are lots of ups and downs, and at times more downs than there are ups. I think I lose more times than I win, but the wins are so big that they sometimes can overshadow. I think sometimes it's almost like having kids. Like if my kids are 14 and 12 now, 15 and 12 now, sorry. And when I really look back, there are some hellish times, growing kids, but the good times kind of overshadow. And we have the usual challenges of entrepreneurship, of growing a business, having a good idea, validating a good idea, being in the marketplace, having a lot of competitors, all those typical things that make it difficult to run a business. But especially in a marginalized community, and being a member of the BIPOC community, there are other factors that kind of slow you down. that aren't necessarily the greatest. We've never been able to sit and dwell on them too long because you have no choice or option. You just kind of push forward and keep moving. I can give you an example. This is probably the biggest one, and this is one that I'll always. There have been so many that I kind of forget them, but this one I'll always remember because it's one of those ones that almost would have kind of changed the trajectory of your life or of your journey. I've been an entrepreneur since I was 12 years old. And, in my early 20s, I was in corporate sales and doing quite well. And had a little bit of money in the bank, lived with my parents, and decided, you know what, now's the time to throw my hat in the entrepreneurial ring. We had cousins and family who had a clothing store, and I had gone to visit them on a weekend in Niagara Falls. And I said, you know what, maybe I'll invest in the clothing store, and I had some experience in corporate sales and in my corporate gig. And I loved this so much, I decided, you know what, I'm going to take a leave of absence and I'm going to kind of dive right in. So long story short, that one store turned into 3 stores, turned into 3 stores and a small pub, turned into 3 stores, a small pub and a car garage. The car garage turned into a used car lot. And as we were growing, one of my cousins, his brother is a photographer. And this was a time, I don't know if you remember Maxim magazine. This was a men's magazine, an magazine that were kind of popping off at the time. And we saw a bit of a niche in the marketplace. And we saw, there's high-end fashion magazines, and then there's kind of the lower end kind of, beach, club magazines, which was Maxim. And we thought there was a room in the middle. So we created a magazine called Preface, put it all together ourselves, and moved to Toronto and tried to push it. And things were going fairly well. We had Rogers Media and St. Joseph's Media fighting to publish the magazine. And we had hired a company to get us some sales. And they had gotten for us almost $300,000 worth of advertisers who said, if you can put this out, we're in. And at that time, today entrepreneurship and this kind of talk is very normal. But back then, you didn't just start your own magazine. Like, you just didn't do stuff like that. It wasn't like the area we are in today. And we had hired a CPA and to manage all of our finances and make sure everything was straight. And we needed a loan to get to that next kind of level. And he said, if we can get to that next level, the advertisers had signed letters of intent. We were ready to go. We were just missing this kind of almost like a bridge type of loan. I can't remember the exact details, but he arranged the loan, and all we had to do was go in and sign. And we were off to the races. Congratulations, time to pop the champagne. We sign on Wednesday, and we're off. And we get to the bank, myself and my cousin, and we're outside, and we're calling our accountant, and he says he's inside. He's coming out to come get us. And we come out, and he comes out with the banking agent, and we're coming out of the car. I had a Mercedes a Jeep at the time, and right away I could tell that something's off. Like he's looking at us funny, and he's looking at Mike, but really weird. And we walk in, we kind of shake hands, and we sit down, and they give us the paperwork, and we're about to sign. We're getting ready to sign, and our CPA is giving us the details and showing us where to sign and those kinds of things. And right as we're signing, he stops us, the banker, the loan officer, and he looks at us and he says, this is legit, right? And I look at my cousin, and I was really so confused at the question that I didn't understand what was kind of happening. And we kind of said, yeah. And he said, right. So it's like, it's not a scam, right? And we're like, not a scam. Like, again, we just didn't understand what he was talking about, So we're like, no. I'm looking at my CPA, and we sign the papers, and we leave. And then a few hours later, we got our call from our CPA and says, there's no loan. And we're like, what do you mean there's no loan? And he says that, yeah, they turned it down. They're asking for X, X, Y, Z. I can't remember exactly what it was they were asking for now. And obviously stuff that we didn't have at the time. And we were under a time crunch. Like we needed that loan to get to that next step. And we didn't get it. it just didn't happen. And we didn't even have time to even process it because we needed that money so bad at the time that it just shifted to, well, what do we do now? Like, what can we do? And just trying to find other avenues. Can we find private lenders? Can we, because we were really at a finish line. Like everything was done deal. Like we were ready to go. And because of that, everything kind of fell through. It kind of, we missed our window. It all kind of went away. And that was the beginning really of starting the marketing agency, because we ended up selling off some of the materials that we had created to the modeling agency that we had hired. We'd hired some models for the magazine, and they had purchased some of the shots, and then they came back to us for more, and then one thing led to another, and then we just kind of started producing for an ad agency that was working with that modeling agency, and then that's how we started the first marketing agency. So it's those kinds of stories are, there are few of them, that we've happened. So we've always, in many ways, when I list the businesses that I own and I'm partners with, we've built them that way to be able, like I just said about the Neighbor magazine, like that's our line of credit. We built it to be able to fund, because for us, one of those things happens, and then for 20 years, you're like, well, that's not for us. Banking isn't, we have a bank to have a bank card or to have whatever, but we don't qualify or whatever it is. So you just put that out of your mind, and you just move forward and keep going.
Thanks for sharing that, Mike. And then, as you said, like about small businesses, it's not easy. There were a lot of downs, and don't quote me on this. I remember, I think Michael Jordan was saying he missed like 9,000 shots. So, yeah. But he is one of the greatest now. So, was a legend. So talk about unconscious bias when it comes to running your businesses and being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I look at that situation, and I think, I've never had the time to really think about why that happened, or what was it that, that he saw that made him question what was happening. Was it the Mercedes? Maybe young guys shouldn't be in a Mercedes that young unless they're doing something. Are they funneling drug money, through the business? Or was it the way I was dressed? Maybe I should have been dressed. I thought I was dressed, fine, but maybe I was dressed a little too urban, for him. And so when it comes to unconscious bias, we always say, like, there's a big machine that has been built to have people think a certain way about certain people, right? So whether that's, all Asians are good at math, or, this guy is gay and he's in our organization and we're doing some interior design. So you're going to be on the interior design committee because you're gay. And I guess all gay people, like, there are these machines that have been built to have us thinking a specific way. And I think that it's, I can even actually give you another story. So now we have our marketing company. The marketing company is now starting to really, the trajectory is kind of going up. And I remember having my first, kind of 5-figure check, for $16,000 check. I was so excited. And the excitement is kind of tempered by the fact that, I have to put all my money out up front, right? I have to pay all my people up front, and then I kind of get paid on the back end. So this was a time when we were on fumes. Like I needed that check cashed, I needed it. And I'd walk into the bank to get it cashed, and the teller, at the time, was saying, well, it almost in a rude way. I say, I like to cash my check. We're gonna have to hold this check. And I said, okay, is there anything we can do? I've cashed the check before. It was for lower amounts, and we're holding it. And I said, okay, that's, no problem. And I had a friend who was a graphic designer who had hired, and I had written him a check. And so I called him to tell him, hey, don't cash your check yet, because they're holding my check. So wait, he said, well, I already cashed my check. And I said, well, what do you mean cash your check? And he said, I just cashed it, and he banked at the same bank. So he lived around the corner from me, and he had opened up an account after me. And so they had cashed his check, but had held his check from me, but had held my check. And sometimes I understand that there are you have your business practices, right? So certain checks you may have to hold for 5 business days. But that check, which was from me, from that bank that didn't have enough money in the account to cover that check, was cashed without a thought, without, checking, and he was off on his way. And my check had to be held. And again, you don't think about it. I always try to give benefit of the doubt. I think sometimes you have to just to go on, right? And I can remember having to use my daughter to cash my future checks. Like I would bring my daughter down, and she was a baby at the time, months old, and she was cute as a button, big eyes and curly hair. And I'd get to the teller, and this happened kind of by accident. She was, oh, goo goo gaga over my daughter, and talking to my daughter. And then I remember she just kind of stamp, cashed the check. And then I left and went back upstairs. The bank was almost connected to our building in downtown Toronto, and the funds were available. And I was like, oh shoot, like almost like a cheat code. Like maybe if I bring my daughter with me every time, they it was almost one of those, like I needed them to stop seeing me as a young Black male, and since she saw me as a father instead. Or maybe she didn't even see me as a father, she just saw my daughter, so they didn't even think about it. But then I started having a really good relationship with the bank, because of my daughter. We were able to talk. But again, once they got a chance to know me, and I wasn't just a Black male cashing a check, I was Mike, with Olivia's dad. It was a different relationship. So when we talk about unconscious bias, I would say, do I think that other bank manager had, swastika flags in his basement? And, I don't, but he was conditioned to think a certain way without maybe even realizing it. And maybe same thing with that teller who was holding my check. What made it, again, rules are rules, but the rules were followed for one, but not followed for another. So same teller. So how are those decisions made? So definitely unconscious bias kind of plays a factor and a role. And it has the ability to change the trajectory of somebody's life or business. Especially when people are, in all of my businesses, I've never had a business fail because of the business. Like the business has never been a bad idea. It's never been a question of my work ethic. It's always been about cash flow, or another, like with the magazine, it's always been another reason why the business didn't make it. And these are all reasons that that banking or a better relationship with finances would have solved. I can tell you a story of my cousin who owns a shoe company, a 7-figure shoe company, sold at the Bay. He's in the Nevada Shoe Museum. He only recently, and I mean like in the last month, got his first line of credit, from the bank, a $50,000 line of credit, only after, having, looked at, let's sit down and same thing. They were doing it because of, working with the BIPOC community and, these kinds of things. But for all these years, he's been at it on his own, spending, having to finance his own businesses. And all our businesses are profitable and self-funded. But, I can remember him having to get the first time he got a large order, he had to get a private loan of $100,000 to fulfill that order. And that was 30% he had to pay for that loan. So on the private side, and he had to do that 3 times before he was able to then self-fund after that. So he got the loan. Well, the loan was $100,000, but it was a $10,000 fee for the loan. So he got $90,000. And then whatever the other terms were, and then early payment penalties and, whatever. Again, we are at the mercy of a private lender. He had to do what he had to do. But so that's maybe $90,000 he had to pay just to get into the game with these orders that were already, the orders were in. He just had to then produce the goods. So these are all kind of things that we've never had the ability to really look at, right, and question. They happen to us, and we just keep moving. So it's something that's it's prevalent. It's there. I think people should recognize it, and hopefully, now things are starting to get better. I can physically see it kind of getting better. I don't know if it just took the tragedy of George Floyd for that to things to start changing. But for us, George Floyd was not the first, and it actually shocked me as to why so much attention was being, maybe just the right place and time, maybe COVID and people not having blinders on, everyone being at home and everyone being able to concentrate. But biases really play a big factor and have played a big part in. My cousin said recently, he said, "Holy, if I knew that I could have," he didn't even know he had a good credit score. He said they ran his credit and his credit was an 820, and he said that was by accident, I guess, because he had no, last time he checked his credit when he was whatever, early 20s was 6, whatever it was from bad financial management. But from having to pay for his own stuff over and over and over again, he just built up a good credit score without even knowing it. Got a car, had to pay half of the car up front, to get the car loan without even thinking, just from, we call it post-traumatic stress, right? Like you have these events and you just have this way of thinking and then you never stop it because you just think that that's just it forever. So he goes to get a new car and he doesn't even want to hear, already he doesn't go to the regular dealership, he goes to the dealership that is going to charge him more interest because he doesn't even think he can go to a regular dealership. And then he just does how much is the car? 35,000? Well, here's 17,000. Here's 17,000 that is not going to work for him in his business. That is not going to, he's not going to get a chance to double or triple. And then of course he gets the loan because whatever, and then he just pays his loans every month, and but he didn't have to do all of that. So now he's seeing the power that is available, and now the circumstances are that people are wanting to work with marginalized communities. So things are slowly changing, but it's they do exist, and I think a lot of work has to be done in undoing that way of thinking and trying to figure out why would I think that of this person walking in. Is that actually happening, or have I been taught to think this way? So it does exist.
Thanks for sharing that stories, Mike, and it's nice to hear things are improving. Those are being addressed, and I think there's a long way to go as well, and that's one of the reasons we have these events and share those stories. So what are the support services as an entrepreneur and being marginalized? What's there at present now?
It's hard because when you ask that question, part of me on one hand says, I have no idea. Like I have no idea what services are available to help, because I've until very, very recently, I've blocked that out of my mind, that's even available. The businesses that I owned fund the businesses that I own, right? Which almost shouldn't even be that way. Like I should be able to appreciate the profits from a business rather than use that to fund the business instead of getting a line of credit or another credit card or anything else. So I mean, I do know that there were some services after the George Floyd incident that the government of Canada kind of in partnership, I believe, with the BDC, but those are just things that I heard, but didn't, even though they were for us, I didn't click that it was for me. Again, I still thought, well, I'm so conditioned, almost like those, they talk about the elephants that, when they're young and they tie them to a log and then they can't get away. But then the elephant grows up to be this huge elephant and they tie him to a little twig and they just don't move away from the twig because they're just so conditioned to believe that if I'm tied to this thing, then I can't move. And it's same thing back to my cousin as the example. We just don't. I've never even thought of walking into the bank to qualify for a program, to ask for a line of credit. I just never done it. I just don't do it. And it's funny because almost sometimes it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because I don't go get a line of credit, so then I use my credit card as my line of credit, max out my credit card, even though I pay it off every month, because I need it to run the businesses and all of the expenses in the businesses. But then having maxed out my credit card, even though I pay it off, it still, affects my utilization rate, which then affects, so it's just this cycle. But because I've never thought of any those opportunities being for me, I don't even think of it doesn't quantify. Like my utilization rate, I'm just doing what I've got to do as a business owner to keep growing and to succeed. And if I'm thinking of, a mortgage or a home or, I'll just have to put down 20%. That's it. I'll just have to put down half the car. I'll just go get it and put it down. And sometimes we laugh, we joke. And I said, imagine being so successful at business that you just think, I'll just go get the 17,000. I'll just go make it like tomorrow. Like I'll just go within a few weeks I'll have it, and then I'll just do the thing that I couldn't do because, so part of that comes from lack of not, I'll say lack of education, but lack of education from a planning perspective. Like, how do I use these things to be able to get to that next level? So education, knowing that they're out there, but not education in the terms of, how do I use this, to get to that next place?
Thanks for that. So when I'm hearing your story, it's part of is the funding and for marginalized communities, and the other part is like where can you find this information to actually get to that? So which leads to like, what can private or corporate or public sector can do to improve this going forward?
Yeah, I mean, from a banking perspective, so I think a two-part question. So the first part is, I think that I'll take off the BIPOC hat and put on the marketer's hat and say, if you have a program and you want people to participate, then there has to be a much better job at speaking to the individual person. So what happens is you have a bucket, and then you kind of shotgun it one message to everybody, like, this is available. But instead of saying, hey, are you a blank who is blank, then you should blank, right? Like, are you a member of the marginalized community and never thought that, you could qualify for a loan? Well, we have a program that might work for you. Talk to one of our people. So if I had heard a message like that, and maybe those messages exist, but because I'm so blocked to it, a better job of getting in front of, I get emails all the time from the banks that I bank with. And, if I had seen one of those, it would have stopped me long enough for me to read and say, oh, maybe this is for me, or maybe I can plan, or maybe I will go see what's available for me. And on the business side, I laugh and I say, again, because of growing up with the experiences that I've grown up with, I've always known that I have to be 2, 5, 10 times better than anybody else to get to be at the same kind of level. But what happens then is that you're dealing with, really sharp people, really sharp entrepreneurs. HBC, who takes my cousin's shoe line, doesn't have to worry about whether or not the shoes are going to fly off the shelves. He had to move shoes from his trunk, So now that he's at HBC, like, it's almost a sure bet. So for businesses, I almost say you have to be selfish and not say, what can we do to support these communities, but how do we help ourselves by working with people who are, have been grinding their axe, year after year after year, and are super sharp. I say that the bank loses by not, coming up with ways to work with, members of the BIPOC community who are super successful. I mean, almost everyone I know who I grew up with who was an entrepreneur, my crew, if you will, they're all successful. They all have their own businesses, all making money. And all overpaying, for all of their services. But, when you look at, what the job of a bank is selfishly, and that's to sell products, so line of credits, car loans, mortgages, investment services. You have this whole group of people who are just sitting there, like marginalized, like they're just there. And so this is like an easy, it's like fish in a barrel, this pool of people that you can access, that would almost immediately increase the balance of your, of your holdings, because they, I mean, and even I know members of the community who are immigrants, who deal in all cash, because that's just, the big wads of cash sitting in their homes that are not working for them, because that's just the way we do it back home in Lebanon, or in, that's just the way, I'm more comfortable. So businesses need to, I think, recognize that they win if they support and back the right people, right? So, and this has happened to time and time and time again, even from a marketing perspective, marketing company being asked to enter an RFP, a request for proposal, and us getting down to the last 2, and then them going for the safe route. We'll just, we'll do the safe route and hire and then it goes to garbage, it doesn't work out. So the way to support is to be selfish and to recognize that you can win a lot by supporting some of these businesses and leveling the playing field. They win. And I always say the right thing is the right thing is the right thing. Nobody loses when you do the right thing.
Thanks for that, Mike. Christine, I know you have some questions. Just before I go there, just one quick question for Mike. If you had the chance to speak to Mike John 20 years ago, what would be the advice?
Wow. I mean, I think it's, you know, think long term. You know, think long. It's what I tell my kids now. Think long term, because 20 years, if you're lucky, is going to come and go, whether you want it to or not. So 20 years can come, and you can be way further ahead than you are trying to make short-term gains, right? So trying to, if almost like playing the game, right? So I think I should have long time ago tried to figure out how to break in to that system, instead of just accepting that it wasn't for me, or using 1 or 2 or 10 bad experiences, letting that stop me. I think I got too comfortable with taking the long way, with taking the scenic route. So by just recognizing that I can, all the way back to little things like, well, you know what, I'm not going to claim a lot on my taxes because, I need the money that I would pay in taxes, I need to fund my business because I can't get a loan from the bank or a line of credit. Well, then when it comes time to get anything, and I look at my income, well, my income is $20,000 a year for the last, whatever years, because I'm trying to save, but then that costs me more in the end, So I would just say, take the long-term approach, and don't make short-term decisions, because they affect you more long-term.
Thanks, Mike. Christine, I'm going to get you over the questions.
Absolutely. So yes, we are running out of time, but we do have so many questions and comments. So I'm just going to dive into it. Michelle Milan, I would love more information about your Beehive business, Mike. Can you please provide the links to any online content? So if you send it over to us, we'll definitely try to share. Michelle, you can also send us a message on our site or email that I just listed, and we'll do our best to respond to you. Kivan says, hi, Mike, with your depth of business experience and entrepreneurial spirit, what advice would you give to financial institutions to support BIPOC entrepreneurs? Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think reaching out and making them aware that these services are available, like making them feel welcome. I think that's, for so long, you just don't feel like because remember, you have to also layer all the things that I'm talking about on top of everything that happens outside, like for a young Black male, or even a 40-year-old, 44-year-old Black male. Like there's we want to feel, if we felt more welcome, then, I mean, I think both the bank and the businesses could win, because we kind of help each other. Again, we don't have any issues with running our businesses other than the regular cash flow and those kinds of things. It's almost a guaranteed win. And I think that even to go one step further, being able to teach more education on the services and how to use them. It's something I tell all clients: just teach people how to use your services, especially in this content age that we live in. Don't just provide the services, show people how to use them, what scenarios they could find themselves in to use these services.
Amazing. A few more comments. Kenny says, powerful testimony. I totally agree, Kenny. Vicky's asking, how can financial institutions help small business owners? I think you just alluded to that, but in particular in financial literacy, if there are roadblocks, what are they?
Again, just access. I think the roadblocks are, it's a mental shift. So in the same way that, people have to recognize that your cultural bias is holding you back, then even on our side, our experiences are holding us back. And so to be able to see yourself again in the content that is being provided, whether it's in a newsletter, on TikTok, on social media, these small ways of teaching, this is where you are. If you had this, you could be here. And having a person go, you know what, like, it's at least worth a conversation with somebody at the bank. The worst they can say is no. And then it's no. It was no from before. So that's fine.
Okay, so I'm hearing you say, maybe from a financial institution, putting forward more programs that gear towards financial literacy for BIPOC or marginalized communities
Yeah.
that allow them, the audience, to self-identify with the content.
Yeah, because the scenarios are the same. The scenarios that we go through are the same. So identify the 5 to 20 different scenarios and then speak to them. Are you dealing with, then this could happen. We could, talk to one of our people, so they go,
Amazing.
Oh, that's me. I'll go in and talk. And then it's, the rest is just, a plan, right?
Great. Yuri said, so important to have partnerships, financial and otherwise. As an entrepreneur, thanks for sharing your story. He also mentions, unconscious bias, already difficult as an entrepreneur. And so it's very important for organizations to thrive towards eliminating unconscious bias. Janet says, your story is intriguing. Congratulations on your achievements. What advice can you offer individuals that are struggling to hold or regain lost ground in business, especially with long-standing structural and societal inequalities presented to BIPOC communities?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I just say I have a quote that's on that image that you used to introduce me, and it just says, if relentless work or money can solve your problems, then my friends, you ain't got no problems. And I've always looked at it that way and just said, okay, I may have to work harder, I may have to work longer, but it's not gonna stop me because other people have done more with less. So I could be in North Korea and it doesn't matter how hard I work or how that's not the case for me. So I think it's just about perseverance. And one thing that I haven't done in a long time is actually acknowledge, like we only recently acknowledged like the trauma, that we have to just push away or bury it deep down. And I think that if I did that earlier, that I could then kind of almost wake up to say, no, you can use these things to your advantage, or just not giving up, just one foot in front of the other, and just learn from your mistakes or learn from other people's mistakes. I've made a lot of mistakes, and although things look kind of polished, here it took a lot of mistakes to figure out the pieces to structure the things the way I've structured them now.
Amazing. Thomas says, he says, you are right, Mike, treating your business as you treat your children, with love and responsibility. Adia says, it's eye-opening. Your testimonies have been very profound. Michelle again says, powerful analogy with the baby elephant. I agree. That was a really good analogy. Thank you for that. And then the last up, Jason says, he appreciates your insight into how bias are built into organization and people, and what financial institutions can do to address it. As well, love the energy, such respect for entrepreneurships. Lovely comment. Triana, that over to you.
Thanks, Christine. So before we end and head out, before we pass it down to Abish to give the last few words, I want to thank everyone, especially for Mike, Charlene, and George for all the technology stuff, Janet for giving us this platform, and everyone who had made time to participate in this series. Abish, over to you for our final words.
Thank you, Shriyan. Hello again, everyone, and thank you for being part of today's event. Powerful stuff, I'm sure. And sincere thanks to our guest speakers, Mike and Charlene. Mike, thank you for sharing the powerful testimonies, experiences, and challenges faced while establishing the businesses due to unconscious bias or belonging to a marginalized community, how accessing funds can be challenging. But as you mentioned that, we have to keep pushing forward to go to next level and think long term. And thank you, Charlene, for sharing your powerful insights with us. As you mentioned that, probably applying for scholarships can be daunting, but it has so many benefits also. And thank you for sharing so many innovative solutions and, sharing that, how your passion can be combined and you can, simultaneously work for the community as well. And definitely waiting to hear more on the recycling software and more solutions developed by you. We would like to acknowledge our long-standing partnership with the respected organization that brought you this panel series, Welland Heritage Council and Multicultural Center. And we also acknowledge that there could be time constraints faced by many interested participants who are unable to join us live. There will be a recording available to view the event. It's an honor and privilege to recognize and celebrate Black History Month. We are grateful to all of you for joining us today. If you have any questions, please feel free to email us at diversityandinclusion@meridiancu.ca. Thank you and have a wonderful rest of your day.